Today's guest is the co-founder of Morgan Creek Digital, alongside everyone's favorite Bitcoin maximalist Pomp and a good friend of the show who I've had on before, Mark Yusko. Starting as a physician assistant, recognizing a need for change, he started his own innovative healthcare company that resulted in a $500 million exit. From angel investing to obsessively buying Bitcoin, Jason Williams is the definition of a disruptive innovator and dynamic leader. Jason, man, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks.
Even on a holiday, as I said before, even though people won't know that.
That's right.
So you've made quite a splash lately, I noticed, with your market buys all over BlockFi on Twitter, with the usual accusations that the money isn't yours and you're faking it and all the things that we get in this space. But what's caused you to start dollar cost averaging six figures at a time into Bitcoin of late?
Well, I've been doing it, so I'm not trying to flex. I just hadn't been publishing it. So we've been super bullish on Bitcoin since we got into the space in 2015. You know, I dropped millions of dollars in mining to start. So that was my first kind of investment. And that investment was in a lot of GPU miners, because I was mining Ethereum. And so it was just an evolution. My entry was experiencing Ethereum and what you could do with it through mining, got into Bitcoin, and then just started buying and holding it. So, you know, I think I bought my first Bitcoin at like $1,200.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I've been super bullish. Like the full position that I have, and I've tweeted this. So again, I'm just telling you because I'm saying these things because I've gotten kind of frustrated with the anonymity around Bitcoin. It's so black box and nobody wants to talk about anything. And it's like, there has to be some people who are saying, I've taken a position like Paul Tudor Jones did.
Yep.
It was so important and we get so excited about it, but you know, he's speculating around the periphery. He's a super smart guy, but how deep has he gone into the areas we have? So for me, I'm just saying, look, I put 10%, and that's growing, of my net worth into this business. You can back into what that means. It's, you know, it's a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that. And listen, I mean, Pomp's your boy and your partner, and he's openly said that he's 50% in, you know, and people think that's nuts. It's funny. Like I can definitely, I can definitely feel you when you talk about being non-anonymous in this space and approaching it, because I've repeatedly said the same thing. I was at 10% very openly, and I actually got criticism for it because it wasn't enough. but
you know what? You have to be reasonable there. When Pomp says he's got 50 or 90% of his net worth in there, Pomp's 32. You know, he's had some small exits in business, but Pomp doesn't have like, you know, a giant real estate portfolio and a giant VC portfolio that's 20 years old. And you know, so we're just at different points of our life. I mean, Pomp's 32, I'm 46, Mark's like 57. We all have covered different ground in our partnership. And for me, a 10% plus position in Bitcoin alone is a big chunk of change.
Yeah, huge.
And, you know, when I play it out, that's when I tweeted this morning, like, holding Bitcoin is like psychologically devastating because you're constantly running like, you know, this is money to me, and it's money I feel comfortable holding. It's hugely volatile, and it's probably funny to say that, but you know, you kind of play it out, and it plays mind tricks with you, you know, because it's so important in terms of where I'm trying to get, which is to become a billionaire.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting. I'm in my 40s as well. So I'm 43 years old. So I think for me, with two kids and a wife and a family, people can't, maybe the average of the space is probably millennials or early 20s, and maybe they can't quite get there mentally for what that does mean to take that level of risk when you have like real responsibilities and a real life. So,
and Scott, I'm talking about things that people probably, you know, don't think about in this space: wills and trusts, and avoiding like, you know, a probate. It's just like, you know, people are like, this may be lame, but it's not. If this thing does what we think it's going to do, and you're sitting on millions of dollars, you turn, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. you better have a plan. You better have a custody solution. You better have, thought about this, or you're an idiot.
Right. And those are things that don't come with the territory in this space either. Like, it's very easy to do that, to write a will for your stocks and your other portfolios, your real estate. It's all, understood by the government and by the officer who's going to handle it. They still have no idea how to handle crypto, I've found. I mean, I even brought it up to the lawyer and they were like, I don't even know what to do with this. Is it your private keys? What's the value of it at any given moment? It's changing all the time. So that really is something I think that most people don't think about and need to, because it started with me showing my wife what she needed to do in case, but what if we both go, right? So now my dad's got to know, but what if he goes? So, it's like this endless sort of thing. It's really pretty crazy. So obviously you've been very successful. Can you talk about where your story began? Because I know it didn't start in crypto, that money came from elsewhere, that you started investing.
Yeah. So my background's in healthcare. I was in PA school back in 1996, graduated in 98, got accepted to Yale in a surgical residency for physician assistants. While I was there, started to talk to my professors about a retail play for healthcare. It was just urgent care, but I wanted to put it next to a Starbucks, kind of where people lived in the community and away from the hospital system. And this physician, Dr. Flock, who was a general surgeon, really said, Jason, that's a great idea and you should go do that. And he really gut checked me in terms of like, if you continue on the path you're on, which is to be like an okay, moderately highly compensated middle manager in healthcare, you're going to have a good life. You're going to get the 3 to 5 series BMW and a house and probably a membership to a country club. But is it really going to do what you want to do? Because I think you aspire to more than just financial tokens and wealth. You wanted to kind of change the world. And he really didn't light a fire inside of me. It was already there, but confirmed that, I wanted to have the options that real wealthy people have to make great change in their world and in affect other people's lives. So called my mom, told her I was going to drop out, loaded up my stuff, moved back to North Carolina, headed straight to First Citizens Bank, which was a local bank. I had known these guys when I was in college. I had won some awards that they give. And I remember headed to Smithfield, North Carolina, and I met with the bank owners and said, look, I want to buy a post office in Hope Mills, North Carolina, and start this company in urgent care that does 80% of what you find in a local emergency room. I'm going to work in there all the shifts. I'm going to work nights to kind of cover the cost of things. And they lent me an enormous amount of money, which was about $400,000. I was able to go to an auction, buy this property, have enough money left over to renovate the post office into the first urgent care. And I had about 3 months operating capital. And I was really fortunate, man. Like, I rolled the dice. I was 25 years old, and I was able to stay at the table for 25 years at this point, FastMed was born. It was hard work, but through the evolution of 15 years of working on that business, I ended up having about 127 locations, grew it to 1,400 employees, 400 PAs and physicians working for me. And I went through kind of an evolution of my own kind of learnings of business and how to manage money and manage people. At first, it was just me and my college friends. It grew into a professional board. Then I had venture capital and Blue Cross Blue Shield and private equity involved, and participated on boards that were VC and PE led, and took it through 3 exits. The final one in June of 2015, which you spoke about as we opened the show. And that was it. That was really my whole life's adult work. Like, that was all I did, was build FastMed. Yeah. So that was a cool story. And I had to start all over again, terrified, in 2015. Like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, you're starting out again from a slightly higher floor. But so it sounds like for you, it was really a trial by fire. Like every single thing that came along, you just had to learn to do it on the job and become good at those things, because nobody teaches you how to like manage a board or talk to an insurance company, do all those things.
Yeah. And I made wild mistakes along the way. It was really hard. You run head first into the chasm over and over again. And it's just like building a company startup is like this exercise in testing your own will. And it's really, for those who have the like intestinal fortitude to go after it, it's an amazing experience. I felt and still feel like I'm in control of my life, in control of my schedule. And I've been afforded a great opportunity. A lot of people backed me. I didn't do this myself. I'm really grateful to those people.
But you had the naivety and balls at 25 to go after something like that. But like, if you were fresh out and you were 45, do you think that you could do it again? Like that you would, knowing all that maybe that you would even tackle? Yeah.
Probably not.
Nice to be young.
Yeah, like I was married, but no kids. You know what I'm saying? Like it just, I could tolerate like catastrophic failure at that point. You're still in the period of your life that you're a high earner. I still could have practiced medicine. There were ways I could protect myself if I really blew it. At 45, I still do startups. I mean, I'm not a suited up CEO. I'm a kind of a rugged, smash you with a bat CEO. That's the kind of environments that I work in. But no, I don't think I could do it now without assets, without anything, with a family, and trying to take the wild risks I did then. No, I don't think so.
Well, you said you could have tolerated catastrophic failure. What were your most catastrophic failures along the way?
Oh man, like the whole model breaking. When I started FastMed, physician assistants were highly dependent practitioners. And what I mean by highly dependent practitioners, a PA can't practice on his own.
Right.
So I had to hire a physician, convince him to allow me to practice under his license. And then he had to kind of observe my practice, sign off on my charts, be in constant communication with me, because I was already stretching the model because he wasn't on site. It was just me. And we had this kind of daily interaction and weekly confirmation of my decision-making. And all along that growth trajectory of FastMed, the medical boards did not like what I was doing. They didn't like I was employing physicians. They didn't like that I was challenging the status quo of healthcare. So they were constantly trying to stop this process. Imagine you are the boss, but you're dependent on the person who you've employed to allow you the opportunity to do what you want to do. It's a really weird environment to operate from. I was a subordinated employee in the structure, but I was the founding CEO of the business. I fired the guy who was allowing me to practice.
Wow. Yeah, you don't think about that, but that's really interesting.
And there were times that I hit heads with that person, so he could blow, he could stop everything. He could say, you're not allowed to practice, and I had to play chess in that environment. It was really difficult.
Did you have to expand that structure to every one of your locations? And because with one, now you're talking about 140 of these guys.
That's right. So every 8, I had one of those physicians overseeing clinics. And so, eventually I couldn't put myself in this position where I was in a subordinated role so I could truly manage these folks. And I never played the positional power game. I think that's a loser kind of move. If you make decisions that are right for the company, right for your teams, right for the patients, everyone will be on board with that. If someone's not on board with that, they're probably toxic and need to go anyway. Right? So once you get yourself in the right position, you've got the right culture, and you're working with the right people, it becomes really easy. You don't have to be like, I'm Jason, I'm the CEO. You're just like, I'm Jason, I'm your friend, and we're trying to do the right thing. Right. What aren't you understanding at this point?
Yeah, that makes sense. My dad ran the emergency room at the University of Florida for like 20 years. He was an ER physician, and he always commented, I mean, all the problems you're talking about to some degree, I think, any physician in that situation would sort of have identified with. But he always used to say that, the ER was sort of like everyone went there for everything. If they didn't, if you didn't have money, that's where you went when you had a headache, or that's when you went when you had a stomach ache. And FastMed and that kind of model sort of changed that, I think, to some degree. I personally go to one of those clinics when I have like a small problem with my kids, which is right down the road. I find it to be a much better experience even than going to my primary physician. So if you invented that, I mean, that's really like for the customer, I think that's epic shift in the paradigm of how sort of first line healthcare, is viewed.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that was it. It was founded around that time. My greatest competitors had like 3 or 4 clinics. So there were about 8,000 urgent care clinics in the country in 2010. And most of them were 3 or less. So there was no physicians or groups that had 3 or more. So imagine I started in 2001, so we were like the founders of that whole industry. And we were providing like services with the same outcomes, with great quality and great customer service in a walk-in capacity 7 days a week for 1/10 the cost.
Yeah,
I mean,
without the customers sitting there for 9 hours with people that are like dying next to them who can't be seen, which is the normal emergency room experience.
Yep.
So I read that like after, I guess, the exit or somewhere along the way that you were effectively blocked out of healthcare. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So in 2010, I had my first exit, and it was a large sum of money. I was able to roll a large sum forward, and I stayed with the company for 5 years. But that transaction had a 10-year non-compete starting. So it was like, 2010 to 2020. I stayed with them for 5 years, so I was able to work through that. But after I left in June 2015, I was blocked out of healthcare, couldn't practice, and also couldn't do anything in the space around non-appointment-based medicine. So I had to figure out something else to do. And that was probably another really terrifying moment, because on a Thursday, when we sold the company to Abry, we finally got that transaction, and Abry was like, "Look, you've been a good steward. You've been a great founder. We're going to let you have a complete exit if you want. Otherwise, you can stick around and help us build." And I had enough at that point. So I said, "Look, I'll disappear for 5 years and do something else." And they gave me a lot of money, and that was
funny,
it.
Though you talk about it was terrifying, but I think that that kind of speaks to the kind of person you are and your motivation, and that you just like to dominate, obviously, because a lot of people would have said, that's a 5-year vacation. I'm rich. I'm going to the beach. It's a wrap, right? So clearly you woke up literally the next day and were like, I need to do something. I mean, where do you think you get that sort of drive? I mean, I don't think that that's inherent in most people.
Yeah. So the terrifying part, I'll start with that, then I'll get into your question. The terrifying part was that this is really kind of what I wanted to do since I was 16 years old. Like, I wanted to work in healthcare. So then I've been working on that forever. I build FastMed. It's my whole life. It's everything I've done as an adult. And then I'm out of it in 2015. The terrifying thing was, like, I didn't know what I was going to do. Now, I had been doing some venture investing with Pomp. And so we had this really cool portfolio. I had made a bunch of investments prior to meeting Pomp. So I was able to look back at that portfolio and say, is there something here that I want to do that is different? So I left FastMed on a Thursday, and on Monday, I was working on my new startup.
That's incredible. How'd you meet Pomp and Mark? Tell me about how Morgan Creek came together.
Yeah. So I had this friend that worked for Mark Cuban in his office, family office, helping due diligence on investing. He told me that there was this really smart guy who had just left Snap, had like a horrible situation go down where he was like only there for 2 weeks. Before that, he was at Facebook, doing really well, working on growth and different strategies there. But he was moving back to Raleigh, and he thought we'd get along well, so we should meet. And Pomp and I met for a beer in downtown Raleigh. his family was living in Raleigh here at that time. This is early 2015. And we just got along really well. We both wanted to start a venture fund. We were both really interested in pre-seed and early stage venture investing. So we decided to start Full Tilt Capital together. And that was the beginning of our friendship and our investing together. And we've invested with Full Tilt about 63 different companies.
Wow. We
invested about $18 million into those companies. The majority of it was in early stage pre-IPO stuff, or late stage pre-IPO stuff, excuse me. And then the balance of the money was in a bunch of really cool startups. What we realized while we were doing the Full Tilt portfolio was a lot of smart money and a lot of smart people were going into blockchain. And Pomp and I were on our way to Charlotte to buy a McDonald's that we were going to convert into a coin laundromat. And we were just going back and forth about mining and Bitcoin and what is a blockchain and what's going on in the space. And by the time we spent that 6 hours or so in the car together, I was ready to go. The way that I learn is by actively doing things. So Pomp, myself, and JP Barrack started building GPU rigs, sourcing the graphics cards, plugging them in, mining, and that began the adventure. But that's where Pomp and I kind of pivoted into the blockchain space. During 2015, 2016, early 2017, we had been watching Mark Yusko, who is like a really amazing guy in that he's got this long-standing experience managing money and dealing with institutions. He had a large amount of infrastructure set up in Chapel Hill with Morgan Creek Capital Management. So we had like 40 full-time employees. And we felt that the alignment of our cultural perspectives between Pomp, Mark, and myself, the fact that Mark had this institutional machine that could interface with them and we could potentially raise money there would be a great asset for Pomp and I if we wanted to move into investing in blockchain and this space. So, because we were working out of Starbucks.
Amazing. And Mark is the man. He blew my mind. We've kind of gone back and forth a lot on social media and stuff, but when I had him on the show, it was just like a student professor, just getting absolutely schooled by your professor in like a one-on-one learning session. It's incredible that you get to interface with someone like that, both those guys on a regular basis. So you started the fund. You guys are, if last I checked, you're in about 10 different coins, right? But primarily Bitcoin. Is there anything that's on your guys' radar that you're thinking about potentially adding?
Yeah, I would say, we really don't invest in any type of like altcoins. We have the digital asset index fund, which we did with Bitwise, but that really was driven by some of our LPs wanting that exposure. So we worked with Bitwise to set that up, and people can just go to that if they want that type of exposure. The main funds that we invest out of, Morgan Creek Blockchain Opportunity Fund 1 and 2, they only hold Bitcoin positions, and then they have equity positions in businesses in the space. But we're not traders of Bitcoin. We hold Bitcoin. We've DCA'd into our positions. Our first fund was set off to be a $25 million fund. We ended up raising about $41 million. And that turned out very well. It's closed at this point. Our second fund, we're trying to raise $250 million, and we've closed about 70 million at this point. And we're closing more capital now. So it's exciting, and I'm happy to participate in the space.
So I'm a huge fan of BlockFi. I know that's one of your bigger, I'm assuming, I know that you guys invested in them. What drew you to them and their model specifically?
Yeah, So the general thesis that we had was we wanted to try to invest in infrastructure around blockchain and crypto. That's what I understand. Like that's what FastMed was. It was literally like looking at primary care or looking at a hospital system and a hospital system emergency department and saying like, look, there's a gap here. There's some value that we can create if we build an infrastructure layer between the primary care who's open 5 days a week and doesn't really have walk-in services and doesn't really have x-ray and other technologies that could expand the service offering. And then the hospital emergency room has everything you can imagine, but you don't need to go there because it's expensive and it's set up to save people's lives, not diagnose your sinusitis. When you take that same kind of approach to investing in this space, you find investments like BlockFi to be really interesting, but kind of boring. BlockFi is just a bank. It's offering banking services, but in the crypto space. And that may be something that, Bitcoin maximalists who want, sovereignty and they want to control their tokens, it's just a non-starter for them. But for others that, want the user experience and will take on some of the risk that they have taken. And I would even go further to say more risk putting fiat in banks.
Just say you trust your bank?
Right. Or trust fiat, right? Do you trust US dollars and trust your bank? When you really start to think about this, it's not so far-fetched to say BlockFi is a good service. It may not meet everyone's needs, but it's a good service. And, I love the service offerings. As a bank, you can deposit crypto and they continue to expand the type of crypto they have. You can earn interest on those deposits. You can leverage those deposits and get loans. And they have ways for you to exchange crypto inside that bank, which is interesting. Yeah. They have some protections involved. They're constantly evolving. They've had some issues recently, but Zach and Flory are doing a great job, and the whole team at BlockFi. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I had Zach on the show as well, and they're and I'm very friendly with those guys. But like their security breach, luckily, was an informational breach. That obviously nobody's funds were ever at risk, which is good. And
but I'll tell you, it doesn't feel good. I wanted to have Zach on going parabolic, and because I want to explore this in real time with him so people can not feel like they're being bullshitted. So I'll do this. I'll do it with you. I haven't done it with Zach yet, but I wanted, because it affected me. Let me tell you how.
Me too.
Yeah, okay. Because people may not know that. Like they're saying, oh, Jason, 40% or some percentages of people's PI, personal information, was lost through a SimPort attack on an employee at BlockFi. What does that mean? BlockFi minimized it. They said, this is what happened. I appreciate the transparency, but nobody's like real information got turned over, and the likelihood of some action happening on it to you is low. And let me tell you, if that happened in my business and medicine, if I lost your protected healthcare information in that way, it would have been millions and millions of dollars of fines. I would have had to pay for like LifeLock for every one of the people affected to make sure I protect your credit and protect all these things. Because really what was lost was my account information, my home address, a lot of things I don't necessarily want on the dark web if it ever gets there. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good.
Well, have you ever been personally hacked? I was Simswapped, which was like the most miserable experience. Actually, you reached out to me with quick advice when I was Simswapped, and given like I was well protected, so they didn't get anything in that regard. But like that means they have every single piece of personal information. We're able to pretend to be me, unless they obviously had someone paid off at the phone company. But it really is the worst feeling in the world. It's funny. And so I switched my phone service to a company that's like a concierge that basically protects your SIM, which is called Afani. And I introduced him to Zach the minute that it had happened, and they had been interfacing since, because it's crazy. Like BlockFi was secure. It was one of their employees who got Simswap. So you don't realize how many ways your information is out there and how many different ways someone can attack any company. right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've been Simswap 8 times. I think it's 8 times
you gotta
total.
meet my buddy. Yeah.
It was dreadful, and it always would happen when I was overseas. And imagine being overseas and not having your phone, not having your email, like everything is malfunctioning, and you can't get in touch with people. It's a dreadful experience, and I've been through fire with it. And OPSEC for me is important. People think I'm out here YOLOing and posting like my transactions and stuff. Part of it is exploratory. I'm constantly trying to find better security, and you have to take this seriously. If you're using your telephone to authenticate stuff, it's an attack vector that's just, you shouldn't tolerate it.
Don't be a part of the 7.1 million Bitcoiners in the United States who have Bitcoin and a retirement account, but don't have Bitcoin in their retirement account. Seriously, you can hold Bitcoin in your retirement account and not just GBTC. How can you do this? Through a self-directed Choice IRA by Kingdom Trust. The first 1,000 users to open a Choice IRA will receive $62.50 in free Bitcoin. Visit retirewithchoice.com/wolf. That's retirewithchoice.com/WOLF. Podcast listeners receive extra points to move up the waitlist and get their Choice IRA first. Do it right now. It's time to take control of your financial future and free yourself from the restrictions of classic retirement accounts. Are you sick of paying ridiculous fees to trade crypto? It's time you try Voyager. It's hands down my favorite place to buy and trade crypto, and it's 100% commission free. Voyager gives you easy access to more than 30 top crypto assets, and you can instantly transfer cash from your bank account so you never miss a trading opportunity. Even better, you can now automatically earn interest on your crypto holdings. Currently, they're offering 5% interest on Bitcoin and 6% on USDC. Yes, you heard that correctly, 6%. And there are no limits or lockups, which means your funds always stay liquid. Find out why so many people are making the switch to Voyager. Visit investvoyager.com or search for Voyager on the iTunes or Google Play Store and get $25 in free Bitcoin when you use the promo code SCOTT25. That's investvoyager.com, promo code SCOTT25 for $25 in free Bitcoin and start trading today. You've been Simswapped 8 times, but you still, with your name and face on the internet like me. So, I mean, I guess that speaks to how important you think this space is and that it's worth the risk to be out there and really preaching about the importance of Bitcoin, because we know that we're targets. I mean, we're not farm animals with avatars.
Yeah, I was talking to Jameson about this yesterday. Like, we both had a very similar experience, and it was beyond just sim porting. It was threats of kidnapping, I mean, really hardcore stuff. Guns, personal security, FBI. I'm all over this, man. Like, I can text the FBI right now and put them on different things that are going on or problems that I'm facing. It totally sucked. What Jameson did, he anonymized his whole life and sold his house and went off grid. I don't want to live like that.
Exactly.
And I had an experience that kind of hardened me to this world before I got into crypto. So from 2010 to 2013, I was moonlighting as the medical examiner of Cumberland County. So as the medical examiner, I was doing the autopsies out of the office of the chief medical examiner in Chapel Hill, all the external investigations of death, murders, suicide, et cetera. And then I'd have to testify as to how the people died, what happened. And a lot of the evidence I was providing would lock up really bad people who had done bad things. So I had like every asshole on the planet like coming at me. So living with security, video cameras and stuff, it wasn't something I was foreign to. I don't like it. And I'd much rather not have every asshole on the planet trying to attack me all the time, but I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean, then they win, right? If you hide and I understand why Jameson notoriously sort of did that. And actually, I think what he did is a good lesson for people who want to take lesser steps, since it's kind of laid out there how he did it, that you could do part of it, and take certain precautions without having to go completely off grid and hide. But yeah, man,
Scott,
it's the worst feeling in the world.
I was talking to, I don't know if you've ever spoken to Bitcoin Tina. You've got to interview Tina. Bitcoin
Right.
Tina is really, really smart. But one of the things that I explored with Bitcoin Tina, which I'd love to get your thoughts on, if Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, and Bitcoin becomes, and I don't know if you believe this, but what if Bitcoin becomes
reserve currency?
Currency. Yeah. It is the money of the world, and you have an extraordinary amount of it as an individual, like an extraordinary amount of it as an individual, and that could be 10 Bitcoin. Because
at that point, an extraordinary amount, maybe not so extraordinary, but
because Tina thinks one Bitcoin's gonna be worth $50 million. I think he says that 48 seconds into my interview.
Right. At which point you're talking about having $500 million if you've got
as a 25-year-old jerk off. You have no capacity. You have no plan, but you're worth what? Yeah, give me a break. Imagine the pressure, solicitation, and danger that you could be in.
It could be fully Mad Max, but you're talking about like private army level of security required at that point. Yeah. I don't know about, like, I don't like to make outrageous predictions about price, but if the scenario plays where there's hyperinflation, if dollars become less and Bitcoin becomes more, then you have a lot of pissed off people and a lot of rich people who were not rich before. It's basically a switching of roles, as you said, and at that point you've got real problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to explore. So again, I posted today, Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock is like $250 some odd $1,000 a share. Why is it so hard to believe that one Bitcoin could be worth $250,000 of Bitcoin?
Especially when all you're buying with Warren Buffett right now is a big pile of cash.
A big pile of cash and a bunch of inflation, like stocks that have been inflated and propped up. And I mean, it's a really interesting thing to explore. And I don't want to keep throwing these crazy price targets out. Yeah, but I love some of the work Plan B has done, and I love the stock to flow models. And I don't think it's too hard to conceptualize or conceive upon that Bitcoin could be worth $288,000 by 2024. It's not too hard to conceive upon.
So where's that number come from? I know you throw out 288 a lot.
It's just going after the market share of gold.
So it's arrived at basically reaching its full digital gold potential. I don't even think that gets the full kind of market cap of gold. Like, I think it'd be more like $400,000. So per Bitcoin. So it's like, I don't think it's crazy.
I don't think so.
I'm not going to plan my life around it, unfortunately. I wish I could, but I don't think it's crazy.
Right. But do you ever play out these numbers in your head? Like, you think about the amount of Bitcoin you hold, and if this stuff continues to do that, because I've lived it. I mean, I had Bitcoin at $1,500, and that Bitcoin went to like 19,000. Yeah, it went to 20,000. Yeah. That was like an amazing expansion. And I remember like calling my buddies, like, "Are you watching this? This is crazy. It's like, what is going on?" Look, I think that's going to happen again.
Yeah, and if you multiply that by 10 to the numbers you're talking about, it's pretty insane. And yeah, I mean, I think you need to plan for the possibility, because as you said, there's a lot of things in your life you're going to have to bring to that scale.
Yep, and I'm expecting it, so I'm talking about it. That's why
you don't want that, like, if it's $288,000 of Bitcoin, maybe that like ledger that's kind of casually sitting on your desk is not going to, like.
Where's that seed phrase?
Right.
How do I do this? How do I back
the level of security of being your own bank when your own bank is worth tens of millions of dollars is really pretty a mind-boggling and uncomfortable thing to consider.
Yeah, I mean, you should be pressure testing who has your backup keys. Right. Are they in a bank, a safety deposit box, a friend? That friend may not be a great friend once this thing is worth what you think it is. So that's what I'm saying. Like, let's start the discussion now. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Let's do it now. And then when this thing starts running, your pulse is, quickened, but you don't have to worry about anything.
Because it's planned, right?
It's planned. Let's do it
No
now.
emotional decisions. So and it's interesting. You've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. Like you've been in this space. You're OG level for sure, but you're now constantly talking about finally really taking the red pill. I mean, it feels to me listening to you like this has been, I don't know, you can tell me I don't know if it's COVID and the shit show that's the stock market and the infinite money printing, the things that I think are really like showing cracks in the foundation, even to your average Joe. Like, I think your average person now is like, this is ridiculous, who didn't understand anything before. I don't know if it's that or if it's just the point where Bitcoin is at. Like, why are you finally going so deep down the rabbit hole, taking the red pill?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And it is absolutely due to COVID, the economic devastation that we have seen, the shuttering of jobs and businesses, the amount of unemployment that we've had, the stocks only go up phenomenon,
Davey Day Trader.
Dave Portnoy, bodying suits. All of this stuff led me to say, I don't know enough about economics, not to the level that I need to. And I need to start talking to, reading, and doing everything I can to understand, like, what is money? Because I thought it was something totally different than what it is. I've been someone who would say inflation is a good thing because rich guys like me, our hard assets get better in an inflationary environment,
Right.
What a dumb thing to think. What a dumb thing to say. How tone deaf is that? What does inflation do to society? And it just destroys people. It destroys value. And it's a tool. It's just a game that our governments use. Why have I been paying taxes at all? Like, why the stress that I'm under? I'm under a lot of stress. I have to pay taxes every month on everything and every service, every product I buy. Why am I having to do that if the government can just whip up a bunch of money and just give it away?
Right. Why not just whip up the money and get rid of taxes? You can print it endlessly, right? So, and it's funny because people criticize everyone for saying, well, I'm not going to pay my rent. I'm not going to pay my mortgage, which, by the way, I think is irresponsible. Of course, like if you have a responsibility, financial responsibility, you take care of it. But like, you can't blame people for the mentality of like, why do I have to pay my debts if the government can't handle their debts? If they can print money endlessly, why do they need mine? I mean, it's not a far jump to, and also like corporate socialism, like they're barely bailing out me and they're bailing out every zombie company. But you can't blame people for, not wanting to pay their debts at this point.
Yeah. And the real red pill moment for me was this. It was like, money should be enough, right? Money should be enough. I've traded my life. I've worked my ass off. As a 16-year-old, I dreamed of being a physician. I became a PA. I rolled the dice. I built a business. I exited for more money than I could ever dream. My dad is from Manchester. He's a butcher. My mother is Sicilian. She's a hairdresser. Like, we could barely pay for me to go to like a shitty third-tier college just because I wanted to be a soccer player. And now I have an enormous amount of money. That should be enough. I should be able to live the rest of my life and not have to be a professional trader and put all that money at risk in the stock market in some kind of cockamamie scheme that some suit, has planned for me. But you have to do something with money, with US dollars, because of inflation. You've got to risk it. And that's not right. Money should be enough.
Right,
Money
you have to get out there and somehow beat the money.
Bitcoin, this is the red pill moment for me. Bitcoin is enough. Bitcoin is enough. The deflationary aspects of it, all of the things that sound like a bunch of like spin and marketing are not. So when you see like Max Kaiser acting like a complete maniac, I love it. And when you see Bitcoin Tina being bigger than a permabull, I love it because they've been red pilled. And I know like these folks who see me talking about DeFi or saying like Rune, I whisper voice, Rune is up. I'm just exploring around the periphery of different technologies or different products or services that may be interesting. But everything I have, all the real concentrated investment is in Bitcoin because I think it's good money.
It is. And it's funny because I think this year has been my red pill moment as well, to a large degree. I was always sort of, I backed into the space as a trader. So it was always about like, how much money can I make trading this stuff, right? It wasn't really, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole and you start to feel it and you start to actually see the use case and understand what it is that you're actually trading. But I mean, I really think that this is the time for it to shine. I mean, this is, if every maximalist in history has gone down the rabbit hole and seen this hyperinflation coming and the dollar. I always used to joke like, I can't pay my kids' private school tuition in Bitcoin, so what use is it? But that will happen. And the question is, I guess I'm asking you, like, you say Bitcoin is enough, but we still need it to be accepted, right? You need to be able to use it. Or are you saying that you just exit as much as you need to at any given time to pay those bills and hoard the rest?
Yeah, like I'm not even looking for another use case of Bitcoin. Its use case is to hold it.
Right.
It's infinitely divisible. And as it consumes different asset classes and continues to grow in value, you can split it and you'll be able to do different things with it, but its use case is exactly hold it. I'm not looking to transact it. I don't want to sell my Bitcoin. I don't want anything. I'm not trying to trade it.
Right.
The use case is
right. I guess there's just people. You're right. But the use case obviously is if there's a person who only has $1,000 to their name and is living in some foreign country and needs to pay their bills, I guess keep as much of it as you can and only sell it when you need to get those things that you desire or that you need to live.
That's a fair point. Again, I'm saying if you have the ability to buy and hold it, I would take some position and buy and hold it. Yeah, even decimal points, sats.
But listen, the funny thing is that like, that's not a foreign concept. It seems nuts when you're talking about Bitcoin, but generational wealth has been accumulated for all time by people buying stocks and holding them. That's what you do.
How about just saving money?
Yeah, you just get money in there and you don't touch it. The only thing you have to do is not touch your money, not touch your investments. Yeah. That's the thing people can't do, but that's all there is.
Right. I don't know why people struggle with this. Like I'm saying to you, buy Bitcoin and just hold it. It's good money. If I was saying to you, don't spend all your money, just hold it. That would be an investment strategy. Like don't spend all your money. It seems more palatable to say that, but then you say, well, you're taking money, and I think bad money, inflationary money, like just monopoly money. Who knows what this stuff is anymore? They send it to you for free. They just change decimal points on a ledger and do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. Who knows what it is? I'm saying take that stuff and buy good money and just hold it as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense. So they're sending out $1,200 stimulus checks, that people's kids are going to pay $12,000 back for. Yeah. So what do you think the end game really is? I mean, obviously, we all have this like Venezuela, Lebanon, Argentina, money in the streets in your suitcase, Germany, pre-World War II vision of what it could be. But those weren't world reserve currencies like the dollar. I mean, what do you think the end game is of all this money printing? Do you think that that's where it's headed?
Yeah, you brought up the exact point. The reason we get to play around the way we do is, I think, because of World War II. And, we are the world's reserve currency. And every oil transaction in the world is backed by the US dollar. And all the banks that do those transactions have to hold US dollars to do those transactions. And what the US has done, and it's probably through design and through, economic warfare, there's not a lot of US dollars out there. So they kind of choked off supply. So they're able to run the money printer right now, and it's scaring the shit out of everyone. But the world wants those dollars. It's consuming them. And I don't know how many times we can multiply the amount of currency, US dollars that are out there. I know that when Ben Bernanke did this in 2010, they quintupled the money supply and it did nothing.
Yeah.
I'm going to overgeneralize this. I'm going to say we didn't really see inflation, but there was inflation in stocks and inflation in all kinds of places, but we didn't see like
you didn't see the standard kind of inflation that you see in these countries where it's like suitcases of money to buy a loaf of bread.
That's right. And it probably will do the same thing. We're going to see inflation around the periphery. You're going to lose buying power, no doubt. No doubt.
Of course.
When we lose the status as the world's reserve currency, that's when this stuff gets really real. But the U.S. still has a lot of might. We still have a very strong military. We still have the positions that we have. We have a president that will do whatever he has to do to keep that stock market rolling. Like that's what's, like, in my opinion, going on right now. Like,
right, which is funny because that actually means devaluing the dollar.
That's what's happening right now. Like if I was at the White House or wherever President Trump is right now, he's saying, dude, I don't care what you have to do. Stocks go up because there's chaos all around. I'm going to have to stand on stage with whoever I'm competing against. And I'm going to tell you all, you have never seen economic prosperity like you've seen during my time in office. You want that to continue? I'm your guy. All the rest of this stuff, I don't know about coronavirus. I don't know why it happened. I'm doing the best I can. But look at your portfolios. And at the end of the day, that will resonate with people.
The beautiful 401ks. It'll resonate with rich people. But I mean, that means resonate with people because, it's ironic because, the economy and the stock market are so incredibly disjointed, especially now more than ever. I mean, I think maybe 50% of Americans even have exposure to stock roughly, but even most of those, it's like in a 401k, they can't touch, and that doesn't help them pay their rent this month if they have no job. Right. So, I mean, it's insanity.
Yeah, it's hard to even believe the statistics that are coming out now. Like we got into this like fake news and all this stuff going on. Now I don't even know. The
job numbers are such horseshit. I don't even understand. Every Thursday, it's like we've lost 2 million jobs. We've lost 1.5 million. Then the monthly, it's like up 4 million jobs. I'm like, dude, I could figure that out in kindergarten that this is horseshit. You know what I mean?
It's wild. So I don't even know what's going on. I'm trying to just figure it out. I'm sharing everything that I'm learning with everyone around me. And, again, that's why Bitcoin feels so good. And I'm a guy who has assets. Like I buy property, I buy different stuff. I even test out Peter Schiff's business and bought a bunch of gold and silver just to see it. I'm not a big gold and silver guy. I mean, Pomp used to joke with me.
Why not have some?
Yeah, but I actually don't know if it's very valuable. And I just called my Uncle Joe recently and told him, hey, stop buying gold, man, because he loves buying gold, and we talk about that stuff. And I'm just buy Bitcoin.
Boomers love gold.
Love gold.
But it's so funny. That means they should understand why we love Bitcoin so much.
There's a little tech hurdle, but I tweeted this recently. You want to try this one on. I really feel unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate for millennials because they've been put in a bad position financially. And I think boomers and Gen Xers are going to own the majority of Bitcoin, and the millennials should have, but they're going to miss the opportunity.
I agree, because you still need money to get, unless you've dedicated your life to working some sort of service where you get paid in Bitcoin. Or
I'm talking about the majority, the big war chests of Bitcoin will be controlled by boomers and Gen Xers.
Yeah, I think that's sad, but pretty true.
It's heartbreaking, actually. This is well, unless there's, and I don't know the statistic offhand, but as boomers start to die and transfer their wealth to the younger generations, maybe they'll plow some of that money into Bitcoin, which could save some of them. But it's a sad thing to think about, because I was in the same boat in 1994 when the internet was born. I was just a broke college kid sitting in my dorm room. I was like, I'm like, this is going to be big. I want to drop out of school and like put all I got into this. And people are like, no, idiot. This is goofy. AOL, like, you think this is going to be like something? I don't even know what the internet's for. But I didn't have any money. So maybe a lot of millennials are just sitting by saying the same thing. Like, Bitcoin, I get it, but I don't have any money to buy it.
Yeah, it's like, who cares if the idea is great if you're trying to buy dinner?
Yep. Yep. And
millennials have really, I mean, you know, they get a bad rap for being like lazy and this and that, but they've just gotten the shit end of the stick at every single turn. I mean, graduating, you know, whether it's college or grad school during a financial crisis, depending on what level they are, September 11th. Like, I mean, there's just never been, and, you know, they've been dealing with this inflation to some degree their entire lives. Student debt. I mean, there's almost impossible for a millennial to have, you know, achieved financial independence or success, I would say, at this point.
Yeah, and I'm not one who subscribes to the fact or the opinion that millennials are lazy. I agree with you that they've been just raised or had to experience like economic devastation throughout their transformative years, including watching their parents and them lose their homes. I mean, it's been crazy. And it's not hard for me to understand why they may not want to buy homes, why they'd rather rent. And, you know, they're the most educated group in history. You know, I wish I had a statistic to back that statement up, but I think it's true. Like,
I mean, I got to college and they asked me what my email address was going to be in 1995. And I asked them what an email address was. You know what I mean? Like, I literally had never even heard of it. I didn't know what the internet was. You know, now the velocity of information, these kids learn so more than we learned in 4 years and in 4 hours. I really believe that, you know. Now figuring out what's actually true and what's fake is a whole other challenge. But also, like, millennials, I mean, if you were graduating college or something in 2008 and you saw, first of all, we talked about not being able to trust your bank. You saw the banks default on all these loans. They were taking all of our money that we deposited and loaning it for complete crap. And to go through that and then see it all happening again, like nobody learned their lesson and they're getting brutalized for it once again. I mean, Bitcoin really does answer that. You know, it's a meme. Bitcoin fixes this, but
it's so true. And again, at this point, it's taken me 5 years to arrive at this conclusion that I'm not really looking for the layer 2 and layer 3 and layer 4 over Bitcoin. I'm saying Bitcoin's fine just like it is. The construction, the way it works, it's fine. You got to own it. You've got to own it. And whatever you have to do to custody it, protect it, put it in a will, put it in a trust, avoid probate, make sure that you have, and, you know, go through the security layers so there's redundancy and you don't lose it, is smart. It's smart. And then because we don't know what's going to happen with the geopolitical environment that we're in today. Who knows what that is going to do? Just do this. Take some control over your own life. Just do this. It feels good.
It does. It really does feel good. As much stress as it can cause in your life, as you've mentioned before, with the volatility and more the custody. The volatility doesn't even get me at all anymore. Like I don't need the money right now. Like everything I have in it, if it, like you said, if it goes to zero, that would be terrible. It won't, but it's more about, worrying about somebody coming for it or worrying about what will happen to it if I'm gone or something. And that really is a very stressful thing. But I think that solutions will evolve that make it more of a part of the conversation as more people are exposed to it. And as institutional and bigger investors are exposed to it, they're going to need the answers, and that's going to trickle down to guys like me.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we will eventually get like dummy proof custody solutions where you're not, you know, having to keep paper seed phrases and all this other stuff. It will be made very simple. Those are interesting things to me, but you've got to go through the process of exploring what Bitcoin is, getting an on-ramp to move fiat into an exchange, purchasing Bitcoin, moving it off of an exchange into some place that feels comfortable to you, and then putting in security so people can't take it from you in its terminal destination, wherever that is. If it's on, you know, if it's being custodied by BlockFi or Coinbase or Gemini or what have you, you've got to protect it there. And then you have to go to the next level, which we've explored. You know, how do you recover the Bitcoin in the event of some catastrophic thing happening to you? Do you have a will? Do you have a trust, etc.? I want you all to think about those things. I know that the people who listen to some of the things that I'm doing are in the age range of about 25 to 55.
Right.
I'm challenging you to not be YOLOing right now with 1 or 2 Bitcoin. There are only 21 million. Don't be stupid. If this thing got to $50 million, you have 1/2 of my net worth and you bought 1 Bitcoin.
Right.
I worked 15 years building fucking companies and dealing with enormous loads, mountains of bullshit to have that money.
Dude,
Protect
everyone else I had, like half the people I have on this podcast are like 27 years old and are talking to me about like every altcoin that they were an early investor in pre-ICO. And honestly, man, they're all brilliant dudes. And those are the millennials who got it, but it pisses me off because I'm like, it's been a long slog, like to keep it together with major down moments. And some of these people really hit it, really hard the first time.
Yep. And good for them.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good for them.
It's awesome.
We didn't put any real money in ICOs during that time. I just didn't understand it. It seemed like I couldn't understand making an investment in a company but not receiving equity. It was
also,
really
Americans largely were locked out anyways, which is a whole other conversation, whether that's right or wrong, accreditation and all of that. But, I was not like, I was trading the stuff when it hit exchanges and stuff, but I was not a big ICO dude. I didn't even, as you said, I didn't even get the tech. It was like VPN to this thing and then send money to a strange address and hope that something comes back. Not within my risk management profile at the time, but probably would have gotten a hell of a lot richer if it had been, if I had chosen the right ones. So where should everybody follow you after this? Where can they keep up with you?
No, look, first of all, I appreciate this is the first time we've ever spoken and I enjoyed it very much. It's always fun to just have a conversation about things that are interesting. So really cool
man,
stuff.
I love it. Well, we'll do it again.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at JWilliams, FSTMED, and then come check me out on YouTube at Going Parabolic. It's a show I do every day. Sometimes I do rants, every day. We're having a good time there. But like I said, I'm just trying to share what I'm learning, doing some mentorship, bringing on people that I think are underrepresented in the space, who are absolute titans. And, let's go.
So hey, when you were growing up as a Jason Williams in the 90s, did everybody call you white chocolate?
Oh yeah.
Because man, I'm a Gator fan. I grew up in Gainesville. So he was the greatest Jason Williams of all time. You're rivaling it now. Cause I remember when he got kicked off the Gators for smoking weed. And it was the most devastating moment in the history of Gainesville. But man, that dude was fire.
Yeah. They call me Black Milk, White Chocolate. I got all the nicknames.
I mean, you were at the exact right age.
I'm telling you, that's me.
That's it.
Amazing. There's been a lot of Jason Williams, but I'm the crypto finance one.
I did see you dunking on that 7-foot basket the other day.
Oh, hey, don't even try me on a 7-foot basket. You're going to get dunked on.
It was dirty though. I mean, that was dirty.
I got them all, man. Windmill, 360. Oh, it's on.
What happens if we go up to 10?
I'm shooting that jumper.
Slap that net, boy.
I know. I'm gonna shoot the jumper. I'll stay outside.
That was always my game. It was like the bad knees and ankles. I just throw it to me on the outside. I'm not guarding anybody, and I'm not trying to get in there. But
I can dunk a tennis ball.
Okay, I'll take that. This is good. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This is definitely an awesome chat. Like you said, it's good to just shoot the shit. So it was great, man. Have a good one. We'll speak soon.
Have a good 4th.
You too.
All right.
Let's go.